Okay, we are now live. Um, Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Brady. I'm the Youth Engagement Coordinator for NYCVotes at the New York City Campaign Finance Board. And today I have the pleasure of facilitating a conversation with some incredible young New Yorkers from the organizations YVote and the Department of Youth and Community Development, who are amazing partners of ours. Today we're really going to talk about what how we can research the candidates, how we can find out about who's running for office, how we can share this information with our friends and our family members, and how young people can really get more involved in this election season. So to kick it off, I'm just going to go around and have all of our panelists introduce themselves. So Kenisha, let's start with you.
So hi everyone, my name's Kenisha and I'm a sophomore at Stuyvesant High School and I'm from YVote. So basically just to give an overview of why I got involved and why I think this election is so important. One, it's the biggest municipal election New York has ever seen recently, with so many new seats up for grabs. And secondly, youth turnout in municipal elections is extremely low. And as the government has become more decentralized in the last few years, municipal elections are of growing importance. So in order for us to actually see the change we want in our communities, young people have to get involved in these elections.
Awesome. So I will pass it over to Miriam to introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Miriam. I'm a sophomore at John Jay. I am interested in this event because of the municipal election is going to have an impact on everyone's, especially lower income communities, and whoever gets voted into a seat is going to depending on that person. That effect is going to have something on the people, on the youth. Is going to have something on us. So we have to go out there. We have to vote. We have to make a difference in our society, in our community, to show that we are here to fight for ourselves.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And last but not least, Kekeli.
Hello, my name is Kekeli, and I'm a junior at Brooklyn Technical High School. And the reason why I'm here and why I believe in municipal elections are important is, well, Kenisha and Miriam, they really stated it all. Right now, we have so many seats up for grabs due to the census and the restructuring of the districts, which means all incumbent seats are now up for grabs, which means politicians who once were and held special interests and were funded by them are now able to be kicked out of our communities. We're able to have power, we're able to have our voices, and voting is one of the toolboxes in which people have in order to make change. And it's really important that, especially as young folks, that we get involved, we tap into this toolbox that we have, because it's not only the lobbying that matters, it's about voting as well.
Thank you all so much for sharing your incredible perspectives on the issue with us. So let's just kick it off with our first question, and we can go around in the order that y'all introduce yourselves. But I just want to pose to you all, how much do you know about the 2021 local elections? But more importantly, do your peers know about them? And if so, what are they saying about what's going on?
So for me, I have a pretty rudimentary knowledge of the election. I have a good grasp on the most significant seats that are up for grabs and the roles, what they do for our communities, as well as some of the, most popular candidates running. But as for my peers, I haven't heard any discussion about the municipal elections outside of YVote and the local news. So I think, again, local politics are not at all discussed when it comes to us young people. I bet half of the people I go to school with don't even know what municipal elections are. And I think because of how big national politics seem to be now, these local elections are kind of getting lost in the conversations surrounding politics.
As Kenisha mentioned, I have minimal knowledge regarding the elections that are going on now, but I do make sure I look up the candidate, I look up the information about the candidate. Regarding to my peers, we haven't really talked about it. And as Kenisha mentioned, the local news, I watch News 12. I don't hear anything about the local elections, and everything that is going on right now is more the impeachment that is going on. Everything is covered, so we don't really hear much about the local elections. So I'm not really surprised that we don't really speak about it.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Kanisha and Miriam said. For me, I think I'm kind of in a bubble just because of like, I do know a lot of politically active people. So, but within that, all our conversations when it comes to the municipal elections are usually geared in the context of the mayoral elections, because that's just like the glue that like binds like everything together. And that's one of the things in which everybody is like affected with because it covers like their range. And that's one thing that I have noticed. Like when it comes to like my classes and like my peers, we do talk a lot about like what happens on like the national stage. Like throughout every step of like this presidential process, there have been teachers who've like been talking about it. And like that same extent of coverage has never really been applied to the municipal elections. Like, I mean, for my own personal knowledge, I know mainly like my sphere of like knowledge is like the Democratic like um candidates for the mayoral elections as well as like my city council district, and that's about it. And I know I really do need to like learn more about like the people who are going to be like representing me and who I'll be their constituents, just in case I do end up needing something from them.
Yeah, something that I noticed about all of your answers was, you have this basic understanding of what's going on, that we're having all of these races. But like you were kind of talking about how like a lot of other people like your age don't really know what's going on. So I'm just curious, like, what are some barriers to learning about the elections that you yourself have run into, or that you think your friends may be running into?
I think the biggest barrier is honestly just convenience. Like when it comes to local elections, probably 5 minutes after the president or any candidate does something, you will see tens upon maybe even hundreds of news articles literally just talking about that one thing they've done. And as I've tried to research the candidates, it becomes really hard to look into specific issues because they're not as, I guess, widespread or popular as those for national elections or even state elections. So I think like if it takes the average person doesn't have an hour a day to spend on just researching candidates for municipal elections. If they can't do it on their commute or just like on a break, it becomes pretty much impossible to do. So I think because the information isn't really out there, it's kind of buried under a lot of stuff because again, municipal elections aren't really publicized. Because of that, and because it's so hard to learn about the candidates, one, people don't vote in these elections because they don't know enough about the people running, and a lot of people are prone to misinformation because it's just hard to learn about candidates.
I agree with Kanisha. One problem I've run into is resources. I don't have enough resources, enough information on these candidates. I don't even know all of the candidates. And I feel like what she said about timing, there's no time to go and research multiple sources just to get one thing about these candidates. And it's not widespread enough. I feel like news channels should carry these municipal elections much to show up the candidates like they would at a national election, but they don't do that. So when I watch the news for like a little bit of time, I don't find that in there. Instead, I find something else about the national news. So local news, anything, local news needs to find more information about these resources and try to spread it to people who need it.
I do agree that information is like a large barrier when it comes to like the elections, like just even not knowing like what the candidates have done, especially if like it's a new candidate who's like new to like policy in general, which is usually the case when it comes to municipal elections, which you don't really find on like higher stages of politics. It means that like they don't really have as much experience, and because of that they don't really have a track record of which to show of, which can make people kind of apprehensive, because although like old faces are things that like people usually detest because they may have terrible track records, new faces are also another type of danger to people, just because they're not sure of like what they're going to do and if they're going to keep their promises. And to hold municipal seats, a lot of people are able to hold on to municipal seats for a very long amount of time, which can make it hard to like get rid of them, like if you end up electing the wrong person. So I think that there's also that sort of pressure on people as well.
Yeah, I think you also kind of like teased out this really important piece of information that, there's not one like centralized place where you can, not necessarily always a centralized place where you can learn about the candidates in like a quick and easy way. And, something I'm thinking about is like, for young people, what is something that candidates could do to, make it easier to learn about them and their policies?
I think, as I guess like cliche as it is, honestly, just get involved in social media and have strong campaigning there. Because like if you do get involved there, you are probably 10 times or even more as likely to actually reach young people than young people that would be searching things up. Just because one, young people tend to spend a lot of time on social media, and two, it's where a lot of change is happening more recently. And it's social media hasn't just become a place we go to for fun. It's become another vehicle through which we can enact change and learn about politics, educate ourselves. So definitely getting more involved on social media, I think, is a huge thing for candidates. And again, like even for this just transcends municipal elections, but any candidate getting involved on that basis is going to tap into an untapped, audience for them, because the voter turnout for municipal elections is so low. And if a candidate can actually reach young people through the means in which they interact with others and enact change, then that is a really, I guess, a strong skill for them to have.
Yeah, that's a brilliant idea. Being able to connect with young people through social media, since we spend so much time on it, the candidates should definitely do that. I also advise that they should have a website. I don't mind going on a website. I don't mind going on the bio on Instagram, clicking on a website to learn more about the candidate, the point of view of the candidates on issues and policies that I am interested in. So I definitely feel like candidates should also have a website as a backup to that social media.
Yeah, the only thing I'd have to say about that is that I don't like particularly trust candidate websites, because they're given like a large degree of control into like what they can put on it, which means you're probably not getting the most unbiased information. And they could put stuff on their websites which doesn't really reflect what they believe in, or they may be backed by special interests, which won't really allow them to blossom into those fields in which they say that they're meaning to run for as a platform. So because of those, I don't really trust using a candidate's website as a source. But it's also like a good thing to be used as like just to see what actions they may have taken, because there are a lot of candidates who put like some of the actions in which they've done, which I find to be like just a better like source overall. And with the social media part, like this wasn't primarily targeted towards young people, but like I mean we could definitely see the power of social media under like President Trump. The fact that like he was like one of the first presidents who like really used social media like heavily to like connect with his base, to energize them, to rally them. And like the impact that they had on our country in like these 4 years really just like is a testament to the power that social media can have, whether it's used for bad or for good.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's a really important point about how powerful it can be to mobilize young people on social media. So that is something we know that the candidates can do, like get more involved in social media, interact with your constituents on social media. But if you're a young person who wants to get more involved in the election, but it's very new to you, it can feel overwhelming. What would you suggest to people who like want to get started or are looking for, good information about the candidates that are running for office?
Would probably advise everyone to check out local publications. That's where I've learned the most about the candidates and who's running. Like there are some more general articles on bigger publications like the New York Post and the Times, just about the I guess more so like the size of the race, kind of giving you a general idea of what's happening. But I found that publications like the city or borough specific publications, those have been super helpful in understanding the candidates. And also, I guess just going back to Kelly's point about the candidates' websites, I personally do like looking at their websites just to get a sense of what they want to do policy-wise. But again, I don't trust their websites when it comes to, recapping their history in politics or anything like that. I think for I guess a judgment call on the candidates, for that, I'll look to more towards publications. But when it comes to understanding policy, I'll look at the candidates' websites.
To add to the publications, which are a great idea, by the way, to learn about the candidates. In regards to voting, I think you should join local organizations such as YVote that could help you learn more about voting. There are many organizations out here in New York City, all around, that could help you learn what it means to vote, what it means to be a voter, and what rules you're supposed to follow, what you're supposed to do. So looking out for these local organizations, going out to join them will give you more resources and more information to help you vote better, to help you vote for the better candidate, to help you make a wise choice in regards to voting.
Yeah, and like this is kind of like an unavoidable fact, but like definitely you're gonna need to do research. Like if you want to like get involved at like any capacity and like not make uninformed decisions, you're gonna need to like research to like figure out who like the candidates are, just like having that baseline knowledge, like knowing like maybe not knowing yet like who their donors might be, but like what they say they may do on politicians, just as like a rudimentary guide. And also just like knowing like some sources, like although like some sources I may use just to make it easier on myself because they're more convenient, are like the politician record like generators, which are usually like third-party sites which have like the backgrounds and like the voting records and things of like politicians, just so like if you have incumbent candidates you can know what they're doing if you don't know already, which can be really helpful. And that makes it a lot easier when you have to like filter out doing research for like new candidates versus incumbents.
Definitely. I think those are all great suggestions. And, something I know that both of your organizations do, YVote, I know you have your issue scorecards. DYCD, I know you're hosting these incredible youth town halls and you're building a youth agenda. I would just love to hear more about how you are utilizing these tools to help young people make informed decisions and hold politicians accountable.
Yeah, so for the issue scorecards, Kelly can touch on this too, but basically what they are, like each action groups, we're obviously split up into different action groups focusing on different issues such as like gender justice, climate justice, criminal justice, and etc. So each group made a scorecard, and the scorecard essentially consists of different topics within each action group and questions that you want to answer about the candidates and places to, I guess, score them based on how their answers respond, align with your values and what you want to see in a candidate. So I think these are obviously applicable on honestly any level in politics, and they make it a lot easier for younger people to do research. Like if older people who've already voted a few times, who've already been civically involved, they have a better grasp on how to get answers from candidates, how to research candidates, and just essentially anything regarding politics. So this is supposed to make it easier for young people to actually get to know their candidates, because young people don't have enough experience voting yet to know what they want from candidates. So these are essentially just supposed to serve as a guide for people to just get to know their candidates and know what they're looking for.
Yeah, I can like further speak on it. Like Each action group we had like the agency to decide like exactly how we wanted to go about it, whether we wanted to do it on a specific election or if we wanted to make it more general. And we had some action groups who made it focus on like specific like state elections that were like going on. And we also had like action groups like mine who made theirs like more general. And like for ours, it was basically a targeted of questions of like what questions you can like ask candidates and like what questions you can like try to like target with your research just to make it easier, because as Kenisha said, like when you're first starting out you really don't know exactly what you want to ask, and like just knowing the questions is like a very basic guideline to like then getting your research down, which can put you in a foothold of entering and understanding the political arena and making sure that you don't get taken advantage of. And that's something that's really important if we want to have people who are and politicians who are accountable to their constituents.
The DYCD Youth Council highlights issues important to youth through surveys, and through the surveys there are different issues in there, and youth gets to prioritize. They get to pick which one is has the most priority to them. So during this priority, we gather them together, we do research on them, which is how we pick the topics for the town halls, and we are also through these topics we are going to use them to hold politicians accountable for what they're going to do for youth, because youth are a part of the community, even though sometimes we aren't seen as a part of our community, and we do have specific issues that we care about too, and we need to see change. We have a voice, and so the youth council makes sure our voices are heard, make sure these issues are brought forward for the politicians to see what they're going to do for us as youth.
I also forgot to mention that like one ways in which like YVote distributes our scorecards is Sanda, which is like one of our founding members of YVote and like one of our leaders. She sends them out to like schools who are interested in them. And we also like host like workshops or like work with other schools and organizations to host workshops in which we're also able to distribute the scorecards there, which is making sure that like we're able to get these resources into the hands of youth.
That's amazing. And I know both the work that the DYCD Youth Council is doing and these issue scorecards are going to be really important, not only for young people who are new to the process to really getting involved, but also like, for our older adult allies, right? And so kind of leading into that, not all the young people who are organizing in the civic space, right? They're maybe not old enough to vote yet. But where we do have power is being able to influence our older peers and the adults in our life on how to vote, on how to vote and how to make sure they're advocating for issues that are also important and affect young people. So I'm just curious, like, what are your thoughts on how young people can really influence the older people and the older voters in their lives?
I think that especially for families that maybe aren't as common with voting or municipal elections more specifically, you can pretty much just aid whoever you know in getting to know the election better, whether that be, kind of starting at the bottom, how to register to vote and, actually how to vote just generally, or just learning more about the candidates. And I think we can usually do that by, if these are people that we do know, then it's easier for us to kind of communicate with them any candidates that they might be a fan of or that their values align with, or maybe just providing them resources to get to know the candidates better. That's always super helpful. And if there's anything, also just kind of creating this comfortable narrative between you and whoever you're trying to encourage, because I think in politics especially, conversations can get kind of hostile. So always having that kind of open narrative that you allow them to ask you questions and you answer them. And I think honestly, just answering those questions and assisting older voters along the way is the best way you can actually mobilize them and get them to go to the polls when it's election day.
Yeah, to add on to what Kenisha said, educating people, educating older voters as to why why these elections are important, what they are going to do for our city, for our community, how they are going to impact our community, whether in the small, large ways or very little ways, and also highlighting the issues. Older voters also have issues of their own they care about. I like allowing them to know that these elections, in regarding to these issues, these elections are going to decide what policies are going to be brought onto these issues. So just allowing them to think about these issues. What issues do you care about, and what candidate cares about this issue too? What candidate has a solution to this issue? Allowing them to see that and to see that they are part. These whole election, this is part of them too. They are part of it, and if they don't vote, if they don't go out to make a change, they are going to be swept away.
Yeah, I agree. It's just that one thing that's a barrier, especially for like low income people, is the fact that municipal elections aren't like a day off. Like they aren't exactly like recognized by most employers as a day off, which makes that like a barrier that's difficult to overcome, because even if they like get the education needed to like vote, or if like they even want to vote in the first place, oftentimes it's impossible for them to get to vote because they have to be at work.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a really important point to raise. And I do want to just take a second to highlight the fact that we'll have early voting for all of the special primary and general elections that we're having this year. So there's 10 days of, or I'm sorry, 9 days of voting before election day. So you can really vote on your schedule and your time. That being said, there are, the early voting sites are, there's fewer of them. They're sometimes farther away than your regular election day site. So that's also something to consider. But we also have absentee voting due to the pandemic. And this is something that's available to all eligible voters. And so you can really, again, request your absentee ballot. Of course, do it ahead of time, stay on top of it, but you can request it ahead of time and really take your time to do the research, and you can drop it off at any poll site during early voting or on election day so you can vote on your time. So I think we're about to wrap things up here. But before we close out, I just want to, see if any of you all would like to pose questions to me or to any of the other panelists.
I guess I have questions for the other panels, and you can answer this too. But I guess, what do you guys think about ranked choice voting and how that's going to change the election this year?
Oh, for me, I personally, I like it because I think that like it's best to like have like a fallback, and like I also think it reflects better what people want like in the long run, because just voting for like one insight, if like that falls through, whoever is going to be next doesn't really reflect the people. And I think this opens up like a chance for like, if anything ever happened to like whoever was like the selected candidate, the replacement could be someone who like was still democratically elected, which I think is like kind of pretty, it's pretty monumental. And like that's something that can like, it could spread up and like go up to the White House, like, and like definitely restructure that as well, which I think would probably be better like in the long term, because it does better reflect the people.
I agree. I also like it because it gives more options as to who. So you don't just have to choose one person, because choosing one person could be so overwhelming at times, and you're putting everything on just one person. So the ranked choice voting gives you more options, more people to say, oh, I like the idea of that person. I like that idea of that person. So either one who gets choose, either way, you're going to win in a way. So because you are voting for someone you like, either ways.
Oh, those are all amazing perspectives on ranked choice voting. Kenisha, did you pose the question? Did you want to add anything about it?
Yeah, well, Kekeli and Miriam covered a lot of ground, but I think something really great about ranked choice voting is I think it's one of the first steps in this like battle against hyperpartisanship and division in our country. Like, if I think the that split is partially caused by, everyone being, I guess, I guess stubborn is the best word I can think of right now, or just staunch supporters of one candidate or one side. But now with ranked choice voting, what we're able to do is you might get one candidate that was, let's say, like 30% of people's first choice, but they were 70% of people's second and third choice, which means that satisfaction with that one candidate is going to be better. And now it allows for the possibility, like kind of Kekeli was saying, on the federal level, to have more than just two candidates. And like, again, the two-party system, in my opinion, is one of the biggest flaws with the way we elect any official. So I think with ranked choice voting, it allows for one much greater satisfaction among voters in general and just more options. So I think it's a really great thing.
Yeah, and thank you all for sharing that on ranked choice voting. I will add, if you're still feeling a little bit confused about the process, I'll just clear a few things up really quickly. We're using it in New York City only for primary and special elections, and you can rank up to 5 candidates in order of preference instead of choosing just one. If you have more questions, we're offering a series of ranked choice voting train the trainers, some of them led by me that are youth focused, some of them led by our amazing policy team. And you can also visit nyccfb.info/RCV, and I will link all of these resources in the chat afterwards. But do any of the other panelists have questions or comments they want to add before we head to the final question? Okay, I will take that as a no, but thank you so much for your time today. And I just kind of want to end this on, everybody can go around and share just like one tip or piece of advice you want to share with your peers as we enter into this election season.
I'd say my piece of advice is just try your best. Like, no one's ever going to be able to do all the research. No one's going to have the answer to all of the questions. But as citizens and as those that are civically involved, it's up to us to stay informed and stay on top of things. So even if you can't, do things as thoroughly as you want them to or anything like that, you just really have to put an effort in to educate yourself, know your candidates, and obviously the most important thing, get to vote on when you're allowed to.
You just took that right. I was going to say stay informed, also educate yourself. Don't try to get overwhelmed by grasping too much information. Make sure to keep it at a level that balances with your schedule. Just try to make sure you stay informed, you keep updated regularly, and know who are the candidates, know who is going to be representing you.
Yeah, and to like further elaborate on Miriam's point, one specific point on research that I like personally just think is like the most important when it comes to especially like elections and just politicians in general is finding out who their donors are. Because even if you don't figure out who, like what they're actually standing for, because that's okay, like they may be lying. If you find out who their donors are and what special interests they're backed by, you have a like good picture of exactly what they're going to do when they get in, like if they get into office, because you have a picture of who's giving them the money and who's like coercing them to do things, which means you can easily use that as like, and just kind of reverse engineer your way into figuring out if this politician is going to do what you need them to do, or are they going to be stopped by special interests. So I think that's just like a really easy way to just make your research way more efficient and to just like make the process seem that much easier for you.
Yeah, those were all amazing pieces of advice. Kekeli, just to kind of bounce off what you were saying, so the Campaign Finance Board actually has an awesome follow the money tool. You can look up, any politician that's registered with us that is running for office office currently, and you can see who they've taken money from and how much they've taken money from as well. So this tool is like really useful, again, for just maintaining transparency in our local elections and making sure that our politicians are in office to serve us and not special interests. But I just want to thank all three of you for sharing with us today, for being here and sharing your intelligence with us. We have officially, NYCVotes has officially launched our voter guide for the February 23rd special election. So if you live in that district in Queens, visit voting.nyc. You can look up your poll site, check your registration, and also find your voter guide. And so again, this is also a really awesome tool that we publish for every election. Just to, and the candidates submit the information that's in it themselves. So, you really get a sense of how the candidates want you to see them when you're looking at the voter guide. But again, you can find that at voting.nyc. I also will be linking some upcoming amazing DYCD events that are happening. They have several youth town halls that are coming up that you can RSVP for. And on February 25th, we are having a mayoral candidate town hall that is produced by Brick TV in partnership with YVote and DYCD. I will link it in the comments so that you can register, but it's going to be a really great stepping stone to just start getting more information about the candidates. I encourage you to watch it with your friends, set up a group chat so you can text about it while it's going on. And again, if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to NYCVotes, YVote, or DYCD. I'll be linking all of our profiles below. And thank you so much for tuning in today.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.